Welcome to Scary Plug-in, where every whisper hides a secret, and every shadow tells a story. Turn off the lights and listen closely. It was the dead of winter in Minnesota, back before cell phones, back before help was only a call away. My sister had gone out drinking with her girlfriend that night, but they got into a fight, and her girlfriend left without her, alone, heartbroken, and drunk. She stayed at the bar until the bartender finally told her to leave. She stepped outside into the freezing dark. The wind cut through her thin coat like it wasn't even there. Snow crunched under her boots as she stumbled along the icy road. With every step, the cold sank deeper into her body. Her hands went numb, her legs weak. She slipped into ditches, clawed her way out, and kept walking. But the night was endless, and the silence pressed down on her. Finally, she collapsed. The snow wrapped around her like a blanket. Her eyelids grew heavy. She thought maybe this is how it ends. And then, a voice, loud, clear, right in her ear. "Wake up!" She jerked upright. Her heart pounded, but the road was empty. No cars, no people, just her and that voice. Somehow it gave her the strength to move. She staggered through the snow, half frozen, until she finally made it home, 2 miles away. When she woke the next morning, she was lying in the entryway, clothes soaked, skin pale, but alive. She swears to this day, someone or something pulled her back from the edge that night. I was about 12 years old when my mom took me camping at Palmetto Island State Park. It was beautiful during the day, endless swamp, wooden boardwalks stretching out over the water, and the sound of crickets echoing through the trees. That night, just before sunset, I begged to explore the boardwalk on my own. My mom hesitated, but eventually agreed as long as I promised not to go too far. I remember walking down those wooden planks, the swamp stretching out on both sides of me. The air was thick. The water below rippled with unseen things moving. The farther I walked, the quieter it became. Even the frogs stopped croaking. And then I realized something. I had gone too far. When I turned to head back, the trail behind me felt different, longer. The boardwalk seemed endless, stretching into the dark. My chest tightened as panic started to creep in. That's when I saw him. At the far end of the boardwalk stood a man, perfectly still, just watching me. At first I thought maybe he was another camper, but then he started walking toward me, slow, steady, his footsteps heavy on the wood. And then, faster. The sound of his boots pounded against the planks as he picked up speed. I didn't think, I just ran. My feet slammed against the wood, my lungs burning, the boards groaning under me. Every time I looked back, he was closer. Then, out of nowhere, I spotted a side path. A smaller boardwalk, half hidden by brush. I cut down it, praying it would lead somewhere safe. And just when my legs were about to give out, the path opened up near our campsite. I bolted straight into my mom's arms, crying, gasping, unable to even explain what had happened. When I finally looked back, the man was gone. To this day, I wonder if I only survived because I saw that hidden path in time, or if something much darker was waiting for me in those swamps. When I was a kid, my family moved into an old terrace house. It looked normal enough during the day, but at night it was a different story. The very first evening, strange things started happening. Doors slammed on their own, echoing down the hallway. We told ourselves it was the wind, but the windows were shut tight. The air inside always felt heavy, thick, like someone unseen was standing just behind you, watching. My siblings and I would catch glimpses of shadows darting across the hallway, figures that vanished the second we turned on a light. We never spoke about it out loud, but we all saw them. One night I woke to the sound of footsteps inside my room. Soft, slow, pacing in a circle around my bed. I thought it was my brother playing a prank, but when I sat up, the room was empty. The footsteps didn't stop. They just kept moving, around me, closer and closer. I pulled the blanket over my head and prayed for morning. Even my parents admitted something wasn't right in that house. My mom said she felt eyes on her whenever she cooked. My dad claimed tools in the garage moved on their own. No one ever felt safe there. We didn't stay long before moving away. But every now and then, when my family talks about it, the same silence falls over us, because we all know something else still lives inside that house, and it was never meant to share its home with us. I was still in training as an EMT when I went on my very first serious accident call. It was late at night. The highway stretched ahead of us, dark and empty, until the dispatcher's voice came over the radio. A multi-car crash. Multiple victims. Unknown conditions. When we pulled up to the scene, my stomach dropped. Headlights flickered across twisted metal. Shattered glass sparkled across the road like ice. And the smell, burnt rubber, smoke, gasoline, hung heavy in the air. People were everywhere, some crying, some screaming. Others just sat in silence, their eyes wide and empty, as if they were no longer really there. The first patient I reached was a woman, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Blood ran down her neck, staining her shirt. I tried to keep my voice steady, whispering, "You're going to be okay." But my hands were shaking. Everywhere I turned, there was someone else. Some calling out for help, some already too quiet. That silence was the worst, worse than the screams, because I knew what it meant. The night felt endless as we worked, rushing from one broken body to the next. And even though I did everything I was trained to do, I knew deep down that not everyone would survive. That was my first real call, and it changed me forever. Even now, years later, when I close my eyes, I can still see those headlights flickering across the wreckage. I can still smell the gasoline in the air, and I can still hear the silence that told me some lives had already slipped away. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and if you're from there, you've heard the legend, La Llorona, the weeping woman, cursed to wander the earth, searching for the children she lost. My parents always warned us, never stay out late near the canals, never go near the rivers at night, because that's where she was said to roam. One night, when I was about 15, I woke up suddenly. The clock read just past 4 a.m. The house was silent, and then I heard it, a sound outside my window, soft, broken sobbing. At first I thought it had to be a neighbor, but the crying grew louder, long drawn-out wails that made my stomach twist. I crept to the window, hands shaking, and pulled the curtain back just a little. And there she was, a tall woman in a long white dress, standing in the middle of the street. Her hair was black, tangled, falling over her face. Her shoulders shook as she cried, louder and louder. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just stood there staring as she slowly turned her head. Though her face was hidden, I felt her eyes on me, cold, empty, searching. And then she drifted away, down the street, back into the darkness. The next morning, I told my mom what I had seen. Her face went pale. She whispered, "That's why I told you to stay inside." La Llorona looks for children to take with her. Even now, when I think about that night, I can still hear her cries echoing through the silence. A few years ago, my cousins and I went camping deep in the woods. No cell service, no people for miles, just us and the fire. That night, as the flames crackled low, the forest grew. Too quiet, no crickets, no wind, only the sound of our own breathing. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something. A figure, standing just beyond the tree line. At first, I thought it was a person, maybe a late hiker. But when I looked directly at it, it didn't move. It didn't breathe. It was darker than the shadows around it. One of my cousins whispered, "Do you see that?" We all nodded, afraid to even blink. The figure stood there, watching. Minutes felt like hours. Then slowly, it began to move. Not walking, not running, just gliding between the trees, circling our campsite. The fire flickered as if the air itself grew heavier. And for a moment, I swear I heard it whisper my name. We didn't sleep that night. We just sat together, clutching flashlights, waiting for the sun. When morning finally came, the figure was gone. But in the dirt around our tent, we found footprints, too long, too deep, and leading straight up to where we had been sitting. It was late one night, and I was lying in bed, half asleep. The house was silent. Still, that's when I heard it. Breathing, slow, heavy, right beside me. At first I thought maybe it was my own breath echoing back somehow. But then it grew louder, deeper, like someone was standing over me in the dark. I froze, my chest tight, my hands gripping the blanket. I didn't dare move. The sound went on for what felt like forever. And then it stopped. The room was silent again. Just as I began to calm down, the phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was trembling. She told me my aunt had just passed away. The exact time, the very same moment I had heard that breathing. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe my aunt had come to say goodbye, one last breath, before leaving this world forever. I used to work nights at a hospital, and if you've ever been in one after midnight, you know how different it feels. The halls are quiet, too quiet. Every sound echoes, footsteps, doors, even your own breathing. And yet, somehow, it still feels like you're not alone. One night I was making my rounds on the 4th floor. Most of the patients were asleep. The lights were dim. Everything felt still. That's when I noticed her. A woman standing at the far end of the hallway. She wore a pale gown. Her hair hung over her face. And she wasn't moving, just standing there. I started walking toward her, thinking she might be a patient who had gotten out of bed. But with every step I took, she didn't get any closer. It was like the hallway stretched on forever. And then, in the blink of an eye, she vanished. A cold wave rushed over me. The hallway was empty, silent again. The next morning, I told one of the nurses what I had seen. She didn't look surprised. She just said, "You must have seen her too. People say she was a patient who died years ago on that floor. Some nights, she still wanders." Since then, I have never looked at empty hospital halls the same way. Because I know not every shadow you see in those corridors belongs to the living. When I was about 10 years old, my family moved into an old 2-story house. The kind of place that creaked no matter where you walked. The upstairs bedroom was supposed to be mine. But from the very first night, I knew something wasn't right. Every time I tried to sleep, I felt it. Like someone was standing in the corner of the room, watching. One night, I woke up to the sound of faint giggling. Soft, high-pitched, the kind of laugh only a little girl makes. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and whispered, "Hello?" That's when I saw her. A small girl, maybe 6 or 7, sitting cross-legged on the floor. Her hair was long, covering most of her pale face. She tilted her head as if studying me. And then she smiled. But her smile was wrong. Too wide. Too sharp. I screamed and my parents came rushing in. But the moment they turned on the light, she was gone. After that, the activity only got worse. Footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. Toys moving across the floor by themselves. And at night, that same soft giggle right by my ear. We only lived there for a year. But even now, whenever I close my eyes in the dark, I can still see her sitting in the corner of my old room, smiling, waiting. A few summers ago, I went camping alone near the Black Canyon rim. I wanted peace, silence, just me, the forest, and the stars. By day it was beautiful, towering pines, endless trails, and fresh mountain air. But when the sun went down, the forest changed. That night the fire burned low and the woods grew too quiet. No crickets, No owls, only the sound of the wind brushing through the trees. I crawled into my tent and tried to sleep. But sometime after midnight, a noise woke me. Scratching. At first I thought it was just an animal, but then I heard it again, closer, right against the fabric of my tent. I held my breath, and that's when I saw them. Two pale hands pressing against the mesh window. Long fingers stretching, curling slowly, dragging across the screen. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. I just lay there frozen as those hands slid across the tent wall and then disappeared into the darkness. For hours I stayed awake, clutching my flashlight, listening to every twig snap outside. But nothing else came. When morning finally broke, I rushed outside. There were no footprints, no sign of anyone, just the trees. Still, silent. But deep down I knew what I saw. And I've never camped alone since.